Boxing aficionados, what's up? What's going on? Hey, yo, check this out. Welcome to Top Rank Tuesdays. This week is going to be a nice one to have this Top Rank Tuesday episode on boxing aficionados, because we finally get a fight that we, the boxing fan, has been waiting for quite a while. That fight being Dmitry BIVOL against Artur BETERBIEV for the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. Light heavyweight championship of the world. And a lot of people are making predictions. I see that a lot of people are picking BIVOL to win that fight. I believe that's a mistake. I believe that this fight between Dmitry BIVOL and Artur BETERBIEV, for Artur BETERBIEV, it's a redo. A rerun, better say. It's a rerun. It's a rerun of Alexander Gvozdyk and his fight. It's a rerun of the fight he had with Alexander Gvozdyk. The parameters for the fight are the same. The barometers for the fight are the same. BIVOL doesn't do anything that Alexander Gvozdyk didn't do. Gvozdyk was a underrated boxer, and you have to remember that BETERBIEV was the underdog against Gvozdyk. Gvozdyk had beaten the PBC's light heavyweight championship, long running light heavyweight champion. I forget his name. He went to Stevenson. I forget his first name. But he beat Stevenson. That guy was a long-running champion with power. And Gvozdyk went to Canada to go get that belt. And he promptly unified, I think one fight later, or maybe two fights at the most, later, he faces Artur BETERBIEV. It was Gvozdyk who was the better known product. He was picked by the boxing heads the so-called boxing scribes and pundits that I heard. Right? I don't remember anyone picking BETERBIEV to win that fight. I myself thought Gvozdyk was going to outbox him. He had Teddy Atlas in the corner. He had good legs, good movement, good power. And to tell you the truth, for about 5 rounds, he actually did it. He was outboxing. Artur BETERBIEV. But Artur BETERBIEV's one punch was the equivalent of 10 punches from Gvozdyk. And slowly, methodically, Artur BETERBIEV wore down Gvozdyk. As a matter of fact, if everybody can remember that, Max Kellerman got into a lot of trouble for calling Gvozdyk criticizing Gvozdyk on the Max Kellerman show, painting him as a quitter for that fight, for taking a knee in that fight, when you saw that he was far from a quitter. BETERBIEV beat the life out of his ribcage. He wore him down with body punches. Took his legs right out from under him and eventually stopped him. That's who BETERBIEV is. You know, now at that time, I still hadn't realized how much of a boxer BETERBIEV truly is. I didn't realize how much of a boxer BETERBIEV is, if I'm honest about it, until he faced Joe Smith. Now, Joe Smith is an opponent that was shared by both BIVOL and BETERBIEV. BIVOL went the distance with Joe Smith. There was a point that he almost stopped Joe Smith. He did pretty much a lot of damage to Joe Smith, but he went the distance nonetheless. And let us not forget that there was a moment in about the 10th round where Joe Smith caught BIVOL and had him on shaky legs at the end of the 10th round. And it was only the fact that the 10th round was about to, I think it was 30 seconds left in that in that round when he caught him. It was only the fact that there was only 30 seconds left in that round that stopped Smith, that prevented Joe Smith from finishing BIVOL. A lot of people don't want to talk about that for some odd reason. I don't know why. For some, for the BIVOL heads, it's a point that they just conveniently forget to mention. I believe that BETERBIEV actually has a much better resume than BIVOL. Especially if you take into consideration amateur competition, his amateur record. I believe that BETERBIEV faced, in facing Joe Smith, in facing Joe Smith, Marcus Brown, Alexander Gvozdyk, who was the #1 light heavyweight at the time in the division, because he beat the #1 guy, which was Stevenson. So rightfully so, he became the #1 guy in the division, right? Plus, his experience against Alexander Usyk in the amateurs far by trumps whatever BIVOL has done by far. And I know that BIVOL gets a whole lot of credit for beating Canelo. He deserves it. But let's face it, Canelo didn't really... People slept on BIVOL. But his win never didn't surprise me over Canelo. Canelo is too small for that 175-pound division. Canelo beat who was the man at that division? He was actually we forget about that guy, Kovalev. Canelo beat Kovalev, but he beat Kovalev under some really, really, really ideal conditions, right? Kovalev had just survived his fight versus the big British kid that's another guy who who BETERBIEV fought, the one he fought in the UK. The guy was pretty good. And Kovalev barely survived that fight. The British guy ran out of gas. And Canelo then took on Kovalev, I believe, some 10 weeks later. Kovalev didn't even get a really good rest coming off that grueling fight against the British guy. I wish I knew his name or had the name, because it would actually sound better if I actually remember the guy's name. But that's how Canelo beat Kovalev, and I think there was a weight clause on that fight. When he fought Bivol, who wasn't known as a puncher and still is not known as a puncher, I think Canelo slept on him. He said, I'm just, this guy, I'll just do what I want with this guy. Or, he wasn't intimidated or put any kind of clauses in that fight, because he thought that Bivol doesn't punch, and he pretty much doesn't, really. He's not a knockout artist. And Bivol put it on Canelo because he outboxed him. He outpunched him. He had more output. He was busier. He had the movement. He didn't fall into Canelo's traps. He wasn't there to be hit by Canelo. He didn't fall into his punches. He didn't let Canelo dictate any parts of the fight in any way, shape, or form. And that's what he did with Canelo. But he's not going to do that to BETERBIEV. You don't dictate anything to BETERBIEV. BETERBIEV will have you looking like you're ahead, when all he's really doing is wearing you down. And if you don't have one punch power to hit to stop BETERBIEV, you're in for a long night. He fought Joe Smith. Again, maybe you can't apply triangle theories here, but I was ready for Joe Smith BETERBIEV to be. I was actually at the Garden for that fight. I thought that was going to be an epic fight. People were expecting it to be a real, it was so much that Steve Kim came out to New York to see that fight. Steve Kim, he doesn't really travel that much to see fights. And that was one of the fights that was big enough, compelling enough to bring Steve Kim out to New York to see that fight. And it turned out that we all saw what happened. BETERBIEV outclassed Joe Smith and got him up out of there in, I believe, 2 or 3 rounds. And he did it boxing. He boxed that guy in a way that BIVOL could not. And I believe that that's exactly what's going to happen with BIVOL in the BIVOL BETERBIEV fight. I just believe that BETERBIEV is going to look a lot like his fight against Gvozdyk. Like I said, it's a rerun, take 2. Because BETERBIEV can take BIVOL's output. And he knows how to deal with that movement. He saw it from Usyk. They fought about 3 or 4 times in the amateur system. BETERBIEV had beaten Usyk, and Usyk was a big guy, a big athletic guy, and BETERBIEV dealt with his movement in the amateurs. He dealt with Gvozdyk movement in both the amateurs and as professionals, as in the unification bout, and he will deal with BIVOL's movement also. A lot of people are sleeping on BETERBIEV. I don't know why. One of the concerns is that BETERBIEV is coming off a layoff. He's almost 40 years old. BIVOL's 33, has been busy this year. However, he's been busy this year, but he's been lackluster fights. Come on, let's really. They had him put him. They put him there with a doormat so he could finally get a knockout. His last fight. In the fights before that, he went the distance with all those guys that they propped against him, and he did look great against Zurdo Ramirez. I thought Zurdo Ramirez was gonna give BIVOL problems. I thought Zurdo Ramirez was going to fight Mexican style, but little did I know that Zurdo Ramirez didn't have the heart that it would take to actually implement the strategy that would have beaten BIVOL, which is a come forward, balls out assault on BIVOL. Ramirez did not leave it all in the ring. It was a disgusting display by him. I think oh my God. I thought he was going to wake up and see and do something. I thought that he was going to see a guy who beat Canelo and actually put it on him and leave it all in the ring and do his best to beat that guy so that he could then bring Canelo in the ring and have his name, Zurdo Ramirez, become the stuff of legend. But Zurdo Ramirez, wow. It was completely a disappointing performance. Yes, BIVOL outclassed him, outboxed him, shut him down, but Ramirez did not put forth the type of effort that it would take to overcome that gap in talent between he and BIVOL. BETERBIEV, first of all, there is no gap in talent between BIVOL and BETERBIEV as far as boxing skills, boxing acumen, boxing execution, footwork. There's a different styles, but there is no gap between the level of fighter that BIVOL is and the level of fighter that BETERBIEV is. So that's a wash. And now it'll come down to a heart and determination. BETERBIEV has that in spades. He's done it. Look what he did to Marcus Brown. Marcus Brown was outboxing him for a little while. And then BETERBIEV does what he did. Does what he does best. Catch up to him and beat the life out of his body. And that's exactly what he's going to do to BIVOL. That's the way I see this fight going. Also, there's some concern about his age. Again, yes, and his long layoff. But I think that in BETERBIEV's case, that layoff actually benefits him. And he did fight this year. At the very beginning of the year, he fought against the British guy. So he fought once this year. Yes, he fought once this year. He was supposed to fight BIVOL earlier this year, like in the summer, and he missed that fight. But here we are. He's ready to go. He's going to be fighting twice this year. So he fought like in January against one of the Smiths. I forget, Callum Smith, right? Wasn't it Callum Smith, the guy who fought Canelo? He fought Callum Smith in January. He missed his summer date with BIVOL, and now we're here in October. That's not too long. For him, that rest is warranted. For 40 years old, that rest is warranted. I see that fight not going the distance. If it does go the distance, then I see BIVOL probably winning the fight. If it went the distance, that's the way that BIVOL would win. Movement, decision, I would see it would probably go to BIVOL. But I don't believe the fight is going the distance. I don't think we're going to hear a final bell. I think that the BETERBIEV is too resolute, too dedicated to his craft, and he's ready to die for this to achieve his goal of becoming undisputed. I believe that his deep religious beliefs and skill and strength and power, I think it'll be too much for BIVOL. BIVOL, who's been having marital problems. BIVOL, who's not clearly as resolute or stable in his private life, according to his ex-wife. Maybe he got with some crazy skank who's really dogging his name. But the point is, no matter how that turmoil is happening in his life, whether it's his doing, maybe he's a bad guy or not, the point is that turmoil doesn't in any way reflect or reminiscent of the life that BETERBIEV is living with his family, his kids, and it's two different pieces. It's the culture that BETERBIEV comes from and executes in his life is what's going to make the difference in this fight. Anyway, that's enough for me. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. Thank you for being here. Like and share if you want. If you like the video. As always, enjoy. This is Next Level Boxing Talk. I am a filthy casual for boxing aficionados. Peace, I'm out.